So, guys, welcome back to La Autopsia. Tonight, actually. This is being recorded in the night. So, we're here with Capita on the second episode of what now is La Autopsia. Capita, how are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling awesome. So the weekend I was celebrating my birthday and I'm pumped.
I remember when your mom gave birth to you.
You remember that?
Yes. I was there.
I'm afraid of asking.
I was there. So, by the way, happy birthday. We wish you a merry happy birthday.
Merry birthday. Merry birthday to
Merry
me.
birthday to you. So, bro, what do you got for a present?
Well, like I got the Meta Quest 3 and I went to see preseason Broncos game.
Oh,
And they won.
nice. The opening game? I didn't.
No, it's preseason.
I didn't.
You know they have like three preseason before the regular season. So
I didn't know you for a football fan. I think we talked about
Oh,
it
yes.
before, but
Oh yeah, I've been a fan of the Broncos even before I came to Colorado. Like when I was 18, back in the John Elway days.
was I remember with the Broncos were like, weren't they the No, they were not it. I think it was the Colts. That was on NFL Fever 2002, the video game. That's when I around that time when we got back from New York. That's when I like rediscovered football. But I don't watch sports anymore. I'm a boring guy now.
I like sports. Once in a while, they're like easy to follow, and I mean, at least to me, anyways. And that's usually how I like keep up with all the admin stuff. I just sit with my the laptop and I start like typing and writing reports on whatever when the football game in the background. So and I usually don't enjoy like football, like stadium games that much, but I really enjoy this one. So
It was your birthday. That's why it's a special game. It's like me. I do the same, but I do it with video games.
Fair enough.
With video games, that's my
Yes.
that's my go-to. So, according to the Joe cards, we have the topic for tonight, as we promised the audience, was how fear and trauma translates into the enemy design in video games. And I think specifically because we want to make that clear, specifically on survival horror and psychological horror games. So, I think just to give a short introduction on how survival horror doesn't just rely on jump scares, but it's more of it's a more symbolic approach. So when you have a psychological approach to horror, like games like Silent Hill, games like The Medium, for example, it's more recent. And hey man, even action thrillers that rely on horror, like Alan Wake, they have these deep messages in between all the design of the game, including the environment. But we want to focus today on enemies. So I think monsters in these genres often embody trauma, guilt, and social anxieties rather than being just monsters. Because we can have monsters in games, like for example, you can go to, hey man, and even Halo, even the Flood in Halo, it represents something deep. And I think we touched it and when we were analyzing survival horror back then, because it just came up, not because it's not a survival horror game. But you can have, I don't know, maybe like Killing Floor. There's like a bunch of monsters coming in hordes, and you're just there killing monsters. But in games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill, it goes deeper than that. And it set the stage for even grotesque bioweapons to psychological manifestations. So with that said, Capita, within the concept of fear in design, which one comes to mind first?
You mean video game, or you mean like
Video
genre?
games.
I got lost a little bit in the video games.
You have it in the back.
I feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit too much. So
Pyramid Head. I think
right on my head.
Pyramid Head, as of today, This is being recorded August 18. Pyramid Head is on the hot seat again. And I think it's worth mentioning. There's been an ongoing debate for years about the symbolic or maybe what would Pyramid Head represent within the Silent Hill lore. And as we know, Pyramid Head was meant to be only on Silent Hill 2 because it represents, it's part of the James story, right? And I think for years everybody's been tied and leaning towards the idea that it represents trauma, guilt, and even the anxieties and the repression of James. And Capita, I think you touched the subject of he being like not the executioner, but more like a guy that was like the Punisher, like a Punisher to James, right?
Yes.
Shoving into his face everything he has done. I'm gonna let you take this one because that's your boy. It's like, when we're talking about Albert Wesker.
No, it's not my boy, but I understand what you're saying. Well, like, I think that to me, sometimes it's kind of like hard to communicate it, my interpretation, which is just an opinion, of like something like Pyramid Head, because I'm a psychologist and I like to say often that witch hunters, they hunt witches and they say witches everywhere. So sometimes I'm concerned is just because I'm a psychologist, I'm always like finding like a deeper meaning to things. Yeah. And Pyramid Head is not an exception. I guess it's one of the reasons why I love the Silent Hill franchise so much. Just the representation of fear, just going back to what you were like, you're prefacing everything at the beginning. So to me, from the get-go, just the design alone, it I have to say, it screams a phallic object. It just does. Like, it's like pointy, like the division, like everything, even like the apron like costume thing that is like leather skin.
A butcher, yeah.
Yes. So, but it's still like, dude. I mean, there's a lot going on there, and it's slow, and it's. Even on the remake, they make very specific way to portray this creature. Yeah. And the first time he interacts with James, it's powerful, it's dominant, and to me, it's just a representation of like uninhibited libido. That's a psychoanalytical concept, which libido means sexual energy. Desire, if you will, sexual drive. And because of James, and that's part of the trauma, that's part of the guilt of why he ended up doing the things that he did in the story. So the design on itself, like, it's really interesting because I'm pretty sure you're going to bring this up later. But the conversation about like what Pyramid Head really means, I often think that maybe the creator, the designer of the figure, they maybe they didn't know why they ended up creating. Maybe in their heads, like, oh, I want it to look like this. Yeah, but I don't necessarily believe they've been able to connect their own thought process, pre-consciously or subconsciously, if you will, of like how to come up with that idea of that specific design. Yeah. Maybe they it looks like this. That makes sense. It feels right. But it seems to me, and later we're probably gonna elaborate on this, that they might not be fully aware of what created, which kind of like also fits with the whole principle of subconsciousness. You're not aware of the things that you're doing or deciding or thinking about. Yeah. Some of them you are, some of them are repressed memories and concept and archetypes and construct that you have. And I think that in this case in particular, like, they had an idea how they wanted to look like, but the entire design screams something very specific. And it'll be hard for me to believe that even though they can argue that it wasn't meant like this, like a sexual object, for lack of better phrasing. I think it was more like, it was meant to be like powerful, dominant, like
I think
the Punisher. Yes.
I think the whole misunderstanding comes from that first scene when he's just that we call it the red thing, that he's just standing under the red light, right? At that moment, it feels like a mirror, right? Feels like because it's not moving, it's not trying to attack. It's like like James is looking at himself. And for me, I took it back in the day, and we have talked about this numerous times. Like I took it like as James was looking itself in the mirror when the game began. It's kind of like a recall to that. I felt it like that, right? It's not moving. It's just looking at you, and it's red. It's like that's the guilt. What happened? It's like this is. But
well, to me, it's also a bit because it's behind the bars. There's a gate, so things like you're gonna start unlocking the trauma. That's why you have to. You cannot go in. You have to go around, and you still face him. And then but it's okay. If you open the gate, you're gonna like open like maybe repressed memories and what have you, which kind of pretty much ends up happening anyways.
Yeah.
So it's that threshold, that barrier that is keeping that trauma away, or that repression, if you will.
I think. Okay, so there's this thing, and I'm gonna go there now because I think it calls for it. So the creator of Mr. Masahiro Ito, which is a genius in my opinion, like this from a designer perspective, he has created so much great things in not only in gaming as an artist. Somebody started sharing stuff on X. I think it was I'm not completely sure if it was today or yesterday, but I think there's like a ball of things happening, and somebody is saying that Mr. Masahiro Ito cannot say that he's not it's not a sexual libido related character because he was not the guy that wrote the story. He was just designing the character, and you can't say that, guys. That's not accurate. That's not how it works. When a game designer is designing a character for a game, they are doing it based on lore, on story. It's not always the case because we've had people in here that they just design something and then after they create the story. But either way, it's always going to be tied to whatever the author wants to portray. With that said,
it should be connected.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. With that said, Masahiro Ito went and said that there was low IQ people that claimed that the cutscene with Pyramid Head and the two mannequins depicted as I don't know that I don't think I can say that word, but as a forced act of desire. They told me you just designed the creatures. That's what people told him before, and as I told them, he has told them a bunch of times, I design and built all the creatures and all the animations of Silent Hill 2. Also thought of all the plans for Pyramid Head, the cutscenes. I built them myself, but I never said that the scene of Pyramid Head abusing mannequins meant forced libido or sexual desire. He said that he can understand that. He can understand people going that way. But there are different opinions out there, and that he still leaves that open to interpretation. Now, he also has said back in the day that he believes the initial intention was to actually portray Pyramid Head as a force, as blunt force trauma, like I don't know how to explain the words he said because I don't have them here to pull them up exactly, but basically he was saying that it was just like punishing. It's that desire of punishing, of doing damage, and that's why he just tears them apart at the end. But at the same time, the audience and people have been playing these games for years. They tied that because of the movement, because he looks like he was thrusting, and whatever, plus the sounds. That's the part. So here's what I get confused, and I think that a lot of people that are gonna see this episode are gonna maybe sympathize a little bit with what I'm gonna say. And when maybe our hobby is to overanalyze stuff because it's in our nature. I love doing this stuff for video games. Capita is a psychologist, so that's a very, very atomic combination. But I feel like somebody's telling me that this is a rabbit. It looks like a rabbit. If you touch it, it feels like a rabbit. If you cook it, it tastes like a rabbit, but it's a dog. I'm not saying he's wrong. I don't saying he's right. He has said himself. Actually, somebody, I'm looking at it right now, somebody wrote in there, then tell us what it means. And he basically responded, I'm going to leave it open to interpretation. I'm going to leave that to you. Because this person asked him if Alice, what's the name of the main girl? Not Alisa. I'm mixing up stuff because I just recorded something else like before this.
You mean
Oh my
Maria,
God.
Marie?
No, the first girl in Silent Hill, the one that created the whole thing.
Oh, Alexa.
Alessa. So that person asked him if Alessa created Silent Hill and Pyramid Head was its protector, and he responded, "I'm gonna leave that open to interpretation." So
Well, yes.
that's what I kind of I'm gonna go with you, I guess. On sometimes you create stuff based on, we have talked about how Silent Hill was influenced, like it doesn't matter if it was directly or indirectly, it was influenced by imperfect horror that was very, very, very on the times. And I think if there's a documentary out there where they talk about Jacob's Ladder and the imperfect horror and how it infiltrated there. But sometimes that things permeate into your art, and maybe you, like Capita said, it's an aesthetic thing. You created this feels good, this feels right, I like the design, but are you aware of what you're creating, what you're gonna make people feel when people look at it? And for me, it's very, sometimes I'm like, I feel like, so I've been playing dumb for all this time, believing these things, and now it's not that. And there's this term that I think I mentioned it to you earlier about the death of the author. I don't want to go there because I don't believe this is the case, but there's been people that write stuff and then they find new meanings for it and they revisit it and say that no, that was not the original intention. Because at the same time, I do feel like always the main purpose, and we touched it on the first autopsy we did of Silent Hill, was I'm gonna put all this in here to push all your buttons. But then when you ask me, I'm gonna go and say, what does it mean to you?
So here's the thing. I think that this is not something a lot of people are aware of. This is, I mean, you can look this up, of course, but you're not supposed to know these kind of things because it's like, I like to say, deep psychology stuff.
Yeah.
So it seems like he went for something powerful, dominance, things along those lines.
Yeah.
That doesn't contradict the sex part of it. There's a really cool scene or like line. It's a House of Cards. I want to say like it's on 1 or 2. It's like I forgot the is it Frank, the character? Anyway, the main character. He says like everything is about sex except sex itself, which is about power.
Yeah.
So
powerful.
And I like that lines because it is so dense, and I'm pretty sure like a lot of people didn't get it because again, why would they? Like psychology is not something that they teach like regularly. It's something that maybe if you are a little bit like curious and you want to know more about the mind, subconscious and whatnot, then you're gonna dig in. Otherwise, why would you? So, but I'm bringing this up because like I'm gonna insist. I'm gonna piggyback on what you're saying about like he going for something like powerful dominance, what have you, and maybe that sense of like guilt, but that's like overwhelming sensation. But that doesn't deny the principle of the libido, which this cost me an insult from one of my mentors. Because I was like back in the day, I was studying psychoanalysis, and I was wondering why Freud chose specifically the wording that he chose to describe psychoanalysis. And if you are a little bit familiar with Freud, he used a lot of like sexual terms and concepts, including the libido. And they said like, oh, it is sexual energy, but he means like something else. Is your drive? I mean, there's a lot of confusive things. And then um I asked my mentor at the time that was like teaching that specific group, like, well, then doesn't that kind of like apply also to Freud? Why he's choosing to use that wording? Well, also, would
Yeah.
that be his own like subconsciousness then choosing this kind of words because of his own like traumas and perception of the sex, power, and what have you? And then I kept saying, just to explain my point to her, like, well, and I'm asking because, and she said, you're asking because you are un hincha pelotas, which translates loosely to like ball breaker.
Yep.
And I was like, no. And then she kind of chubbed me. And she never answered the question because everybody could tell like I was into something, but she wouldn't answer which is a valid question. Like, why, if Freud said everything has to do with sex, well, yeah, but you're choosing these words yourself and you're creating the concept. So isn't that, also, does that make you like biased and contaminated? And I'm gonna leave it there because I know this might be a little bit like complicated for people to digest, and I don't want to like get away too much from the video game aspect and the lore of Silent Hill specifically. But that's what I feel when even the author, the creator, the artist, he might say like, "Oh, I didn't mean anything specifically sexual," but a lot of people took it that way. I mean, so more dominance. In the back of my head is like, well, it's not a contradiction.
Yeah.
Now, the part that I'm not a big fan of is like, oh, it is not that, but then he wouldn't tell you what it's really about. I'm going to leave that open to interpretation.
I think he did.
That I don't like.
He did on 2022, and I think, and if I search maybe on this, give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull it up because I remember I saved that for the Silent Hill 2 analysis we did in Spanish. Let me see. Let me hit that search. Control H, guys.
Control H.
Okay, so he actually kind of did, but so I think this is the same picture that every time somebody adds what was the intended representation, he always recalls it. And it's the creature is still so abstract as James' delusion reflecting the thing he did, right? I think we all agree with that. But the delusion gets closed to the point every time he encounters a new creature in the journey. Pyramid Head is taking away the delusion's creatures to avoid him falling into the abyss. That, my friends, makes a lot of fucking sense. Because if now you take it from a perspective, I'm not saying that takes away what we have said. I am under the impression that sometimes what you create, people will interpret it in a different way of what it was maybe meant when it was created. Maybe. But Pyramid Head, if you kind of think about it at the end, there are two, right? And they are trying to show James the truth. And once he understands, they do the auto-impalement thing. Because he screams, like, I don't need you anymore. Like, he doesn't need them anymore. That's what that scene means, or at least that's our interpretation, my interpretation, when we were discussing it. So if you kind of think about it, every time he encounters something, Pyramid Head destroys it. The nurses, even Maria. So he's trying to clean his path to show him the truth at the end. So he's not actually the bad guy. But think about it this way, and I think he mentioned it at some point too. He actually said, just imagine that I wanted to create this creature that's going to help him through his journey to, realize what he did. But then I make that creature not a horror thing. It wouldn't be as iconic as Pyramid Head. So now we're going back to the start when we were talking. It's like the design that was intended. Maybe it wasn't what people are believing through all these years, but that's how people feel. And I wasn't the only one. That's why I used the rabbit connotation, because I've read, I don't know how many comments of people saying, "Oh, so it's lasagna, but it tastes like noodles." You know, it's very. I get the imperfect horror thing, because if you look at the movie, we mention always, every time we talk about Silent Hill, we mention the cell all the time. But I think that movie is a perfect thing, and even though that movie does recall the libido sex theme a lot, it has these scenes that not necessarily are to focus on that, where you can hear the moaning and you can hear all the stuff going on, but then the scene is completely of another thing. But it's present there because it's part of the trauma. And there's nobody on this earth that's going to make me not think that James Sunderland was not going through hard times while his wife was sick, and he was trying to, repress all those feelings. So it's one thing. I don't know.
So one of the things that kind of throws me off with because all of these are choices. The design is a choice.
Of course,
the entire design is a choice. I mean, and I remember you brought this up in back maybe several months ago, but about why specifically the pyramid, it wasn't intended to be the way it is, but then they put a metal thing and it's to be heavy. That's what I was. I mean, see, all of those things are choices.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna, I mean, just for the sake of argument, how come he didn't come up with a monster that was pillowy? Because
a pillow, yeah.
A pillowy, like
yeah, because he used a pillow. Yeah,
die? He smothered her. So what? What? You see what I'm saying? No, it's something like straight, tough, erect, metal as a.
I think he's just kind of fed up by. Just remember that he's not the only one caught into this. I remember when the creators were pissed off because everybody thought that it was Ash. It's not Ash, it's Snow. And all these things that. But you have to be aware that when you create things, people are gonna interpret them. Like, for example, people went with Masahiro. It already went through people went after him because when they found out that he used Russian literature to inspire his art for Silent Hill, and I don't know, it's very interesting how he said low IQ, because I believe that at this point there's nothing low IQ of what we're doing right now. We're trying to find meaning into something that it's interesting. It gets your eye. There's a lot of into it, and maybe I don't know if he's aware or not, but the art that he created and the story that the team built has resonated for years, generations after generations, and it has inspired psychological analysis. It has helped people understand trauma. It has helped people cope with it in some way or another. And I'm not inventing this. You can go anywhere you want on the internet and write Silent Hill and read the stories from the fans. So it's yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you and I apologize because it's as always I'm going to explode. I'm going to give you a little bit of sideway, but also another point of view. So, why would he insult the fans? It's a rhetorical question because we don't know.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to start my own speculation. This is not a psychological analysis. It's me speculating.
Yep.
From my experience as a human being, I have an opinion, and this is just going to be an opinion. It's not based on anything. I mean, maybe not. So, if he feels compelled to insult the fans who made Konami a lot of money. Do you go out of your way to try to insult them because they have an interpretation that it seems legit, even if they're wrong? You can tell I mean, that kind of makes sense. I mean, because it's not just out of thin air, out of the blue. Why are they saying that? There's a lot of things that point out, even if they're wrong, but you can at least agree why they will see it that way. So it's really interesting that he felt the need to insult the fans. Now, maybe he's insulting the fans and he's choosing to do that because he's not willing to address his own issues and his own like choices. Because we have to remember, art is an expression. And maybe he's not ready to deal with his own expression because maybe it all of a sudden became a mirror that he wasn't aware he created. And that's why he's pushing back because he did it. It could be all of this could have been so easy, so simple, just like the whole Ash and Snow conundrum.
Yep.
Like, nah, it is no. It's not.
I think it was.
By the way,
at the beginning.
I always so it was always Snow to me.
Yeah.
But the people that would only just got the reference from the movie, they thought it.
Yeah. And that's what I was going. That's what I was going. Yeah.
It's gonna be so simple for him to say like, no, what it means is this, and that because X, Y, and Z, and this is what I chose the design that he didn't do that. So again, I'm just speculating, but maybe this is also a manifestation of his own trauma.
I think
translating on his art that he's not ready to handle or deal with. That's why the anger comes out and he feels compelled to insult the fan base.
He has come out a couple of times and explained, this is the Russian literature. I think there's a documentary out there that shows the pictures that he used. He was also a fan of Hellraiser, Jacob's Ladder, all those movies that were like hot in Japan at the time. But I think somebody wrote at some point that fans following anything, they will often ignore the inputs from the creators and hold on to the narratives they prefer. And that it's what we're talking about right now, because it's interpretations and art is you interpret art. And art makes people feel things, and that's natural. It's a natural process. It's gonna happen. Okay, from a psychological perspective, that is a natural process. It's gonna happen. You see something, and if I see the red thing at the beginning of the game, it's not gonna make me feel the same thing that I don't know. Maybe I put my wife to play, and she's gonna be like, "Oh, there's a red thing there," and that's it. It depends, but there's people said that is often done to avoid accepting that they're incorrect. And a guy, Masahiro Ito said that it's like, well, people, it's like the backfire effect. It's like you want to avoid accepting that you are incorrect. It's not about that. It's when there's people out there saying this represents this and that, it's from their own interpretation and they're trying to put it out there. It's like an opinion, if you may say. So that doesn't necessarily it's wrong. Maybe it's wrong if we are saying the original, if somebody would stood here in front of a camera and said, well, the designer of this intended to this is what it means. He wanted it to be this, and that. Now, I've learned something from survival horror and psychological horror, and I keep saying this every time. Nothing is put in there because there's always meaning behind everything. Even when the author of the designer of whoever is writing lore for something, it's writing them. Not necessarily they need to be aware of what they're writing. But there's something in there.
There's a test that we do, and it's a subjective test. We ask a kid, hey, draw a person, draw a family, or draw your portrait. We don't say anything. That's the entire command. We take that drawing and we analyze it. I'm not gonna get it because I'm not gonna mess the test for those that so I'm not gonna get into any details whatsoever. But that's a test, and we go by certain specifics and choices of the artist. In this case, the kid. Like why they chose to do this way and that way, like so many things that come into the analysis that the kid wasn't aware that he did, but he did.
Yeah.
So make of that whatever you will. I'm not saying like the art is wrong, but what I'm saying is like, why can he be specific? Number one, number two, Why insult the fans? It has no it's it doesn't make any sense. Why would
Yeah,
you do that if it like
I don't understand
why
that
do
part.
you have so much energy? Why do you invest so much energy, so much anger on something that like no, we're just we're open for debate. I know I don't agree with them. That's not what I was going for, but I can definitely see like I see that's it. But it's like no, it's a low IQ.
There's I'm gonna
You're
say
calling
it.
them dumb.
I'm gonna say it.
Why?
There's something. Maybe it's not. I don't know because I don't know why he did it. But
Oh, we're just speculating, of course.
let's say this. I have a lot of respect for that guy the same way that I do for Shinji Mikami.
Absolutely.
But when I read this, it felt weird. Felt like, why are you doing this instead of just because it doesn't. He said like he has done this a couple times. He's just fed up with people and whatnot. But in my opinion, when you put out your art, it's like when I was a musician, my songs were not for everybody. A lot of people would interpret that one thing, and it happened to me a lot of times. Some people don't like it. I'm not gonna be insulting all the people that don't like or maybe took the song incorrectly. As many times that I need to explain it, I will, because I want people to understand what my message was. It's weird because there's another text that just it recalls. I'm trying to find it, but I couldn't. But I think he mentions like, well, if Pyramid Head, especially that scene with the two nurses, was a representation of his repression of sexual desire or whatever, then the scene with Abstract Daddy was his sexual repression. And I'm like, I'm more confused now because in my opinion, the Abstract Daddy scene, and I think this is something that a lot of people can relate to, is it compels to the story from. You're feeling me, right? You're feeling it goes for the story from Laura. And
it's not about James.
It's not about James. And
it's not about James. There's a connection, a subtle connection, especially in the remake, that you can start like that's why she is part of the or like James' journey.
Yeah.
But it pertains specifically to her, not to James. There's a link there, but this is not a manifestation of James.
I think it recalls that specific
trauma coming out.
Those two monsters being there and meaning what they meant from a psychological perspective gives a lot of backup to the lore on one, that Silent Hill brings out the worst things on people when they're there. Or their worst traumas or whatever. It's like it puts a mirror in front of you, right? So, and we can be talking about this forever. We can mention how James C, the fog and everything being so, and maybe the fog represents that the lake in the morning where he was throwing whatever, and maybe that's why Laura sees the fire and everything's burning all the time, and that's why the girl Laura, she doesn't see anything. What monsters, I mentioned Laura, and it's not Laura, the Abstract Daddy one. But anyway, you guys will get it. I think this conversation, it's been super interesting because this will definitely need a part 2 just to go over all the designs that that represent fear and trauma and translates into that enemy design.
It is Angela,
yeah, Angela Orozco. And I think we needed to spend that time with Pyramid Head because I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to just nail that. There's a couple of them that I can tell you they're relentless hunters. And it's like the terroring hot through pursuit, especially Nemesis on Resident Evil 3. He's unstoppable, bro. It's like, talking about we were talking about the term bioorganic weapon. which is super redundant, but
Mhm.
it creates that constant anxiety through the unpredictability and sheer firepower that he has. It's like Nemesis, bro, and on top of all the menacing look that he may have, he carries a rocket launcher. And I don't know if there's a lot of people out there that haven't seen the picture of Nemesis and Sagat from Street Fighter, how Capcom crossover that the whole body type thing. I think that Nemesis goes a little bit beyond that. Nemesis is a symbol. First of all, if you think about Nemesis and you understand the lore, the first thing that comes to mind is Umbrella, because he's a symbol of corporate control, and that inescapable fate. It's like, oh, we're gonna create this issue, and then we're gonna deploy this and see how it does. This bioorganic weapon. Same goes for Mr. X. It happened during the same time frame, but I feel like, I don't know how you feel about this, Capita. I'm gonna let you get into it, but Mr. X and Nemesis, even though they're similar because they're pursuers, I feel like Mr. X is more surveillance. It's just watching that oppressions. The wall have eyes kind of thing. There's been a lot of speculation because he has a mission during Resident Evil 2, right? And he's after Sherry, and it's actually after something that Sherry has, and that's another topic for another day. But I think the sound design had a lot to play in both of them, because the Nemesis, when you heard the stars, he was there and everything, the music started cramping up. With Mr. X was the footsteps, and you knew he was coming. Yeah, for me, the footsteps there were used as a trigger for panic. That was a panic button on Resident Evil 2. What are your thoughts about those two guys? Even though, because people never analyze them separately. It's like they mention them both because they're like the pursuer, but they're different in design and different in what they trigger.
Well, yes, I'm with you 100%. And in my experience, I don't know why, but I always saw Mr. X as an obstacle. Like, I wasn't really afraid of it. I was like, okay, here we go again. I have to see it. But Nemesis, like, holy,
Shit.
and I mean, like, like Mr. X is like, I have to handle this, but Nemesis is like, no, I where do I go to survive?
Oh, the options that pop out the menu. You want to fight? You want to flee? What do you want to do? And it's like you're there with the controller and the tension. Like, I don't want to do anything.
And the thing is that from I don't know, outside looking in, someone that may not have the experience with the video game, it's like, oh, but it's the same. It doesn't feel the same when you're playing.
I love them both. I love them both, even though they are both tyrants, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Mr. X is more tied to that the OG tyrant vein. He comes into that, has a specific mission. There you go. It gets deployed, gets shit done, come back. Nemesis is the same thing, but he's being controlled. That's what we learned, right? So, but he doesn't stop.
Yes,
he doesn't stop.
I think, well, until like it's all until the very, very end. So
yeah, that's your last
to
boss.
Me,
the mutation. Yeah.
So to me, that's part of the problem. Like, I guess, like it becomes part of the story itself. Like Mr. It's not that it's not part of the story, but it's like, again, I see it as an obstacle. It's just like, okay, I have to go back. Okay, I have to evade him.
I think they,
but Nemesis, I
think they played with the idea of maybe they build a tyrant on one, and they said that was nice. It was a nice boss. The scene with Wesker, and he starts laughing and Chris like, you're delusional, whatever. But the tyrant scene with the heart outside and everything, it was like that was a hallmark of one. So they said, what if we just built on that? And then they kind of did at the end of 2, because you actually need to play the different scenarios for Mr. X to pop in, right? They incorporated that as a try. That's the point of view that I have. It's like they put that in there. Let's see how people react to this. And they saw that people love Mr. X. So now Resident Evil 3, Nemesis on the bottom. And he's part of the story. He's a big thing. And then we put it in there. We made it in the promos. This thing is going to be pursuing you. So I think they knew exactly what they were doing. It was just try, fail, repeat kind of thing. But they never failed with those 3 OG games. And neither they did with 4, right? Now, Resident Evil has another one that is Lisa Trevor. I saw somebody post something a couple of weeks back. They shared a picture of Lisa Trevor, and they were discussing, how tragic her story is, and he said, well, she's just another pursuer. And I'm like, no. I think with Lisa Trevor, there was a little bit of a psychological horror thing pointed, incorporated there for the remake, where you can see a big thing of human experimentation, and maybe it's that relatable boss. You relate to her story, that, she was part of that human experimentation, and then she's all like grotesque, but pitiable at the same time, and it connects the bio-horror with the empathy of, as you go through the story. I think it's Lisa Trevor is a different kind of. I don't see her as a pursuer. I just see her as a normal. I don't know why this guy wrote this, to be honest. But for me, that's what it represents. It's a human experimentation in that tragic horror line where you make something that is not the protagonist relatable as a side character.
I was gonna say it to me it's just a tragic character.
Yeah.
That unfortunately you run into.
Yeah. People, there's more than monsters. There's people turn into monsters, and we can mention the Scissor Man from Clock Tower. That's an early example of a stalker mechanics. I feel like Clock Tower has a weaker protagonist though, and the whole point and click thing added a little bit of an extra anxiety to that overwhelming feeling of you being pursued. Scissor Man for me is classic, but the Scissor Man, I see it as a kind of like a slasher in a slasher movie. The damsel in distress, you're running, try to get out, and you're trying to figure out. It was an early precursor of that survival horror vibe. But it was still a point and click. Clock Tower 3, that's another story. But Scissor Man is always it always comes to mind when I want to talk about trauma and anime design, being pursued, and this guy's he's like a freak, he puts these girls in this house, and then he's carrying a big pair of scissors, which, in my opinion, back in the day, guys, just remember this was back in the day. You were a kid, and you were thinking about this guy that looked like a zombie, and he was like, he wasn't that tall. He was a small, creepy dude with big, giant scissors, and, he was like making the noises and coming at you. So it was kind of creepy. Do you remember? Do you have the chance to play Clock Tower, Capita, the point and click, or not?
No, not myself. I saw it multiple times. I have friends playing, but I never played it myself.
Yeah, unfortunately, it came with one of the computers that I had. I used to have an old Packard Bell. There was like a bunch of games you can pick from Pick 3. It was called like a coupon. And Clock Tower was in there, unfortunately, and I was like, I can't finish this game. It was so hard. Oh my god, I just took me back.
And I remember one of the problems that I had with the mechanics, and I know it's just a style, but I was used to something different. So when I came across this specific game mechanics, it threw me off a little bit. It's a point and click, because it's like in my head, it kind of broke the pace of the game. Like it kind of just.
For me, it was okay, because I can relate a lot to your point of view, because if you were like a console player and you stumble upon these PC games, it was a shocker, because I was playing games like, I don't know,
just different.
It's not
a different experience.
This has nothing to do with the conversation, but I used to love Leisure Suit Larry. And those type of like point and click games that were like kind of weird. Um, yeah, those games were something else. Yeah, I had a lot of fun in there, and there was like I can't remember what the name is. It's like After Earth or something like that. It was like a game that my mom got me for my PC for a birthday, and it looked great, bro. Like the graphics at the time, it was like a Tomb Raider kind of game at that time. You remember
Mhm,
that Tomb Raider got the triangle boxes? It came in a box
mhm.
like that, but then it was like, no, you're a bodyguard of a demon, and there's this kind of like sorority thing at a club going on where the bodyguards of demons were gathering, and you're a special one. And I was like, what the hell is this? But it got me, and it was a point and click. It was a point and click game. So I guess I fell for it for a while. I haven't played a point and click in years. I think until the release of Clock Tower 2 remaster, when they announced it, I was so pumped. I'm like, oh, I'm getting this, and then I started playing, and I'm like, okay, now I remember. This is not the experience that I remember. It was completely different. They added some like anime style, things that you unlock just to give it a little bit of a boost. But I think it's still a classic. Um, I don't. Wesker is a very complicated man to analyze, and even though he's not a monster, he's TWLW technically. What's Wesker? I think we need another autopsia just for him, but
I think is well. This is I'm gonna take an easy route. We can really dig in a different episode, but I think Wesker is a shadow. It's like if I'm gonna follow like the Jungian archetypes, the shadow. All the I'm gonna say evil or all the bad traits like mankind has. Is very Machiavellic. It's like
smart
whatever
dude.
it takes. Yeah, and whatever it takes. Yeah, but he's smart, but he's not using his wits to like help others. It's just like he just to pursue whatever he thinks is best for us. So in many ways, it kind of reminds me of Doctor Doom to an extent.
Yeah.
Uh, Even though Doctor Doom, because I mean, it's a character that has I don't know, like 50, 60 years. So it's
That
way more fleshed
the
out.
approach, yeah, I can definitely see the Doom
That
reference.
well, yeah, because the Wesker, I mean, Wesker believes that like things need to be in a specific way, and he's right about how humanity, like what was the next step in evolution, blah 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 blah. So, and he feels that what he's doing is right, and it's for the benefit of like, of course, him first, but also mankind. He thinks like the world will be better if he gets his way.
Yeah. You remember Ricardo from Hunting Ground? Fiona, let me into your womb. That's
Ah, disturbing.
he's in certain way. I have him in the same pile of Scissor Man somehow. But at the same time, that's yes, guys, that's libido, that's sexual desire, that's the whole 9 yards. Hunting Ground is a very, very controversial game.
Only low IQ people will say that, Joe.
My God, that went from 0 to 100.
Yes.
I want to go. I want to mention a couple, and I want to mention what I think they represent for me, Capita, and then you'll tell me what you think. Okay,
Sir, yes, sir.
the Regenerators or the Idol Maidens from Resident Evil 4. I think that is body horror. It's just
I agree with that. It's
just pushes buttons.
which by the way, yeah, and by the way, that's I didn't know until like relatively recently that's a sub genre
Yeah.
in movies.
Yep.
Like there's specific directors that they focus specific on that, and I didn't know that was the thing. I knew there were movies like that, but I didn't know that it was a sub genre.
Yeah, and
Of course. So I think like
and the unnerving breathing audio that plays when they're close. It goes with the body horror thing.
well, I don't want to digress too much, but it's like the first trailer, I think, was a teaser of the new Superman movie when he was like, on the ice, on the snow, like, and he was like
Yep.
all beat up, and the breathing the labor bring like it was so tough that alone is like, oh crap, that's that, and that's just the sound.
Just
If
the
you
sound.
remove the sound, like the sound is like, yeah, I mean, he got beat up, but
yeah.
like the sound is like he's dying. He has like a collapsed lung or something.
And the sound is part of maybe not the artwork, but it is part of the enemy design. It is.
I'm gonna say it's part of the artwork because it's a composition.
Damn.
Come for me.
Nurses.
Come get me.
Nurses and mannequins. Silent Hill. Distorted for me is like this distorted sexuality, corrupted innocence type of thing.
I think it's just the objectification of desire. There's a lot of things. It's like objectifying these faceless creatures that and what do you do with a mannequin? You manipulate, you control, you dominate them, you pose them however you want to, like that's what a mannequin is, and then they're faceless. So it's not really about like wanting anyone in particular. It's just having an object to invest all the desire that James has repressed.
I saw somebody posted that it was interesting too. I like that approach. And he said that there has been a lot of stuff said like this, like, the objectification, the sexuality corrupted kind of thing, approach to the nurses. He also mentioned maybe they were trying to just use the mannequins and the faceless nurses because they were trying to tell the story about when you're going through grief and somebody's sick and you're going constantly to the hospital, the nurses become faceless people. They're just there and you see them coming in and out and you don't remember their faces. And I'm like, well, there's something there.
I like it. I like that take. The problem that I have with that is the dresses.
That came later too. I mean, in Silent Hill 2, you can see some, but then I think cosplays and the movie and everything that came after just didn't help with the case too. But yeah, I can see it. I can see it from the beginning. To be completely honest, I can see it from the beginning.
And also remember, and it's like the short. I mean, you could see like there's an emphasis on the design with the legs and the way they move. So I like that take, but just with the way they were dressed alone, kind of like yeah, but it's a little bit too on your nose.
Walter Sullivan in Silent Hill 4. What comes to mind is just psychological. That's all.
Well, I just think of like pure psychopathy.
Yeah,
nothing else.
Psychopath. Yeah,
it's just like psychopathy. Just a very severe case of
and just to go in with how fear and trauma translates into enemy design, just look at him.
Mm-hmm.
He looks unhinged, bro. He doesn't look like he's there. Twins from Fatal Frame 2. That's grief tied to ritual sacrifice. That's all I see. And that just came out because it's Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterflies. It's one of my favorite stories from the Fatal Frame series.
What about maybe Loss of Innocence?
Ooh, I like that one. Because we know the distorted ritual sacrifice, and they go in depth into the story. But was that only the thing that happened? So yeah, I can see that. The mermaid boss in The Evil Within.
Why babies? Yeah,
that was
the mermaid boss in The Evil Within.
I think it's a distorted image of domestic abuse. That's just.
I can see that.
I love that game a lot. I think just to summarize everything, I think translating trauma into enemy design touches themes like abuse, guilt, grief, loss, and all of that embodied in the enemy appearance and behavior. And if you look all these documentaries that are out there about enemy designs for all these previous games and conversations on social media from game devs and game designers, they have a story they want to tell, so they built their characters based on that. And mostly, I wouldn't call it romanticizing. We have touched this topic a million times. This is like what Hollywood wasn't doing back then. We're gonna do it. We're gonna scream this out. This happens. How can I make it? Well, through horror design. This is how we're gonna tell this story. So that distortion of the human form, it gives us an uncanny valley of discomfort. It's not right, which is one of the pillars of imperfect horror. That inhuman of the movement and the patterns, like we were talking about the nurses, the unpredictability that that keeps the player on the edge, like the one from Nemesis, the one from Mr. X, and hey, we can even mention the Maw in the Medium. I think that the design of the Maw is one of the greatest ones, and it represents that predatory abuse and the lingering danger of childhood trauma. It has dual worlds encounters, which make it both physically threatening, because when you're physically in the world, you can see it, and it's a physical threat. But at the same time, when you're on the other side, it's psychological. It's symbolic from another perspective. I think that's one of my favorite ones from the recent games. So we mentioned the sound cues too. Breathing, dragging chains in the case, the sword dragging from Pyramid Head, distorted voices, and how that psychological horror borrows from that surrealism and expressionism to make enemies symbolic. With that said, I think the blending of the bio-horror and psychological horror, like Resident Evil science-based threats versus Silent Hill subconscious board nightmares, it's what created these modern hybrids like The Evil Within, like The Medium, and even Signalis. Even though Signalis has a lot of sci-fi, and we can be talking about other movies that may have influenced that, but I think maybe passively comes from the same root, where enemies have both physical and emotional origin, because Signalis is heavy on the psychological part. I think
Yes.
newer titles sometimes miss the metaphorical depth, focusing more on gore than meaning. And if you kind of think about it, games that people had high hopes and then they flawed because the original game had a lot of this in it, right? It had a lot of value. We have like the replayability value when you're trying to understand something, maybe if it's psychological or something, a part of the lore that you didn't get the first time, and you're like playing it a second time and you're like, oh, this is what this means. And I think that's where most of them drop the ball. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I feel I'm gonna end up making a highlight the state of our society. I'm sorry, but so if you want to like identify where lies the problem, I'm gonna say not very deep horror games.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how else to phrase it. I think it comes from we're promoting a little bit too much the technical aspects of the craft of making a video game, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's technology. You need to like have your skills very developed, and you have to be savvy on what you're doing computer wise, and be able to use all the technologies. Yes. But the soul, the human part of it, it needs to be cultivated. It needs to be cultivated like to the writers, like on the writers. And then you also like a studio be willing to pay a good writer what they deserve to come up with a really good story. And in order for you to design something powerful that will leave maybe a legacy, that will be like we say like Pyramid Head, for example, that it leaves a mark on the genre. It's very, very powerful. You have to read. You have to do research.
Yeah.
You have to know about like several mythologies. You have to educate yourself.
There's a lot into it.
And I think Stanley Kubrick used to do it like can go back to The Shining. Every freaking frame has a purpose, and everything on the frame has a meaning. Like nothing happens randomly. And I think that in many ways we forget how you can tell a story in so many different ways with what is being said, what is being omitted in the dialogue, what you like putting on frame. You know, the dynamics of in this case, a game specifically. Why are they chasing me? Why is it colored this way? Why? I mean, in order for that to like have an impact, whoever is creating this needs to be a highly educated person. It cannot be just like your random technical guy that dominates like the craft of video games. No, it needs to have someone that understands literature, mythology, psychology,
even if they don't realize it, because the brilliant minds that have been creating games lately, they are well educated people. I've been talking with them a lot. The conversations that I've had before starting recording, they're so great. They're touching subjects that they don't know sometimes that they're touching when they're making this stuff, and you can tell that all of this was influenced by the works that started with Shinji Mikami and Masahiro Ito. So again, I don't get why the insult, because you can tell a story from very different ways. And if I was the artist, I would say for me, it's very, very, very. I would take it like as a matter of respect. Like, people are taking my story and they're giving all this meaning to it, and it's helping people understand stuff. So, just to recap again, monsters in survival horror. Capita mentioned the obstacles, right? And we are now getting to that point that we're confirming that they're more than obstacles. They're visual metaphors for fear, trauma, and human darkness. And we mentioned Wesker, for example. And we mentioned Ricardo, for example. Good enemy design makes the player feel the protagonist's struggle without having to spell it out.
Yes.
It's easy.
I'm gonna show you. I'm not gonna tell you.
Exactly. And we have mentioned, from my point of view, Capita, I think you confirm it too. I think this came out from a conversation on this fourth maybe autopsy when we were doing the what is survival horror one.
You're so cute pretending that I'm gonna remember.
when you're losing control, that survival horror thing starts fading. Mm-hmm. When you're gaining control, right? When you have control over the situation, when you have that unlimited ammo, or do you have endless bullets, or every time you kill something, and that's where all this dilemma about action horror comes into play that we touched on the previous one. But I'm gonna leave you guys with this idea. In survival horror, to defeat a monster, you must also confront what the monster represents.
Yes.
That's I think that should be included as a hallmark in there. So I'm gonna make another question as we did last time, because I got a response. I think the last time we asked the audience, what was the mechanic of a video game that scared you the most, and why? And then we have this answer sent to the email. Guys, leave it in the comment section. Next time, just leave it in the comment section. And this is El Loco Tobias. By the way, Tobias, thanks for watching. He's been exploding those comments lately. We love you a lot. He said, Resident Evil 3 is my top mechanic, with Nemesis and the fear-inducing questions. And I'm like, yeah, I would definitely go with that one too. And then he mentioned La Ñapa, which is an extra one. He mentioned Outlast. That game made me crap myself. That's the quote unquote. Thanks for that, guys. If you want to leave what was the favorite mechanic on this video on the comments, you can also do it. But I'm gonna ask another question for the audience for next time. Okay? Leave it on the comments right now, like this. It's gonna pop out in here. Leave it in the comments. If the monsters in survival horror are born from trauma, what would yours look like if it stepped out of your nightmares into reality? Oh yes, I'm going there. Oh yeah, we're doing this, guys. Keep it YouTube comments, please.
Yeah. Keep it Peter thing.
And then I'm gonna give you a tease for the next episode of La Autopsia. We're gonna be talking about the haunting melodies, the soundtracks, the soundscapes that shape this genre. So we will be discussing and maybe dissecting, that's the term from La Autopsia, how music and sound design in survival horror manipulate our emotions, raise our heartbeat, and make even silence terrifying. So, Capita, I want to thank you for your time. And guys, if you have watched through here, remember to go and subscribe, hit that fucking bell, the little bell, just hit it. So next time we upload a video, you get a message. Like, comment, share. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.